Hey, what's up everyone? It's your boy Kai here again. Your boy Kai is actually super stressed at the moment. That's a different story for a different time though, but I didn't want to put it out there. Mostly I want this video to just completely focus on the Botham John story and all that. I did put a part 1 to this, which isn't really much of a part 1. It's just kind of my introduction to the story, saying I wanted to speak more on it a few weeks ago. If you want to see that, it's in the archives of this channel. But yeah, I probably won't put it in the description because, like I said, your boy is stressed right now, just school and stuff. But it's all good. But like I said, I told you all I was gonna come back to the Botham John story, and I thought since this week's topic was news stories, yeah, it'd be a good time to finish up talking about that. Not finish up, that's actually a bad word, because part of this is actually, part of coming back to this, I actually thought was good, because a lot of times what will happen, well, or at least what I see happen when it comes to media and stuff, something will happen that gets people mad, gets people upset, and wanting change, but then, you know, people be upset for a little bit, and then they'll forget about it, and they won't want to do something again until the next thing happens, and it just gets in this cycle of we're mad, but then we forget about it, and then something else happens, and we're mad again, but we're not actually stopping, or like we need to keep those stories going so that they build up on each other. It's not, this has happened before, it's not something that's new, stuff like this has happened before, and if we just get mad for a brief period of time and talk about it for a brief period of time and then move on, that's not gonna create the change that I truly want. So anyways, another thing that kind of kept me from making the full video on this topic earlier was because I was afraid of just rambling on and on. It's a lot. There's a lot to unpack with this story. There's a lot that happened. There's a lot of questions, and I was kind of scatterbrained about it all. So I ended up writing this little paper that I kind of just put all my thoughts out there, and then I kind of organized it a little more. So I do have some notes with me to try to help make this not a like 30-minute video, and to kind of help me stay on point. And I also am always afraid of saying everything and then realizing I forgot to say something I wanted to say, so it's another reason I did this. But that's just, I mean, just to say the fact that it's even so many questions and so much that's going on here should say something about it on its own. But without beating around the bush any longer, the main focus of the story, if you didn't see my first video or you haven't heard about it, was in Dallas, Texas, this woman, and I'm gonna break it down. Like, we'll get into details, but I want to break it down real simple. A woman got off of work late, returned home to her apartment, parked her car in the parking garage, went into the apartment building, saw, entered, somehow opened, went in a door that was not hers, or someone else opened the door. Something happened, thinking that it was her apartment, and then she shot the person in the apartment thinking that they were an intruder in her own apartment. Then upon turning on the lights, she realized that it was not her apartment, and she had actually shot her upstairs neighbor, who was a man, and yeah, that is the basic of the story, and I left some very important details out right now for a reason. But there's just a lot of things. There's so much about this whole thing that's just, for one, okay, so big thing, she was a cop. I know I didn't say that at the beginning because I wanted to leave that out for a minute, because we got to talk about something about the privilege of being a cop before we even talk about race or any of that stuff. After going into this man's home and shooting him, she wasn't arrested for 3 days, and it's it's hard to think of that happening in any other scenario. When you know who did something, they would immediately be arrested upon entering someone else's house. But she wasn't arrested for 3 days. There was stuff about like she wasn't fired from the police department for a while, and there's questions about why that happened. There's something about the Texas Rangers being involved. There's questions up to how well they actually knew each other. They were saying that they didn't know each other. That's what the news is saying. There were rumors that they may have been dating, but they were neighbors. So you think, did they ever cross paths before this? You don't know. There's all these questions. She says that there was a question of how much she had worked. Like, apparently she had worked a really super long shift in a bad area. Did that have some effect on her mental health? And even if that was the case, in my opinion, which I didn't know when I should put my opinion into here, but just to say, in my opinion, that you can't, if your mental health's not if your mental state's not in a good enough place where you can return off duty and let down your guard after being in a dangerous area, then maybe you shouldn't have a gun. Yeah, like I said, there's so much. I'm afraid of like. Okay, so oh yeah, there was questions of whether the door was ajar. Apparently, she said the door was ajar, and then there was neighbors who said they heard her banging on the door, saying "Let me in," which would kind of negate, like kind of go against that whole theory that the door was ajar. She said the lights were off, and she just kind of saw a shadow in her apartment. And there's questions of whether the lights were really off or not, because his family said that. I heard at one point his family was saying, like, why would he be sitting in the dark? And then, like I said, she wasn't fired for a while because they were talking about the investigation and the Texas Rangers being involved. And you got to think, like, why wasn't she fired immediately? She went into his home and shot him. And then also there was a report that went out saying that they found marijuana in his house, which you think, why does that matter? He was in his own home. He wasn't doing anything that warranted a police officer going into his home, regardless of anything. Like, in a different, like, she was off duty first of all, so that doesn't even matter. But even if she wasn't, he didn't do anything to warrant a police officer going to his home. And then, like, if someone comes into your home, how are you going to react? So her saying, like, one of her reports that she said verbal commands and then shot, like, I think that doesn't matter because she was in his home again. Like, anyone else goes into someone else's house, if you're not a police officer, you're not white, whatever you want to say, white people definitely, like, taking race out of it. I think if a white person went into someone else's house, majority of the time they're going to be arrested immediately if they're not a police officer. But this is such a unique case, I think, only for the reasons that it's like she was off duty, he was in his own house, she said she was in the wrong apartment. It's like the classic white police officer, black victim that you hear about, like shooting that you hear about. But then there's this twist of where it was an accident. Was it an accident? What are the circumstances exactly behind how that happened? And regardless of whether it was an accident, if anyone else did this that wasn't a police officer, and most definitely wasn't most likely white or white passing, probably would not. I mean, I can't see another situation where someone would walk into someone else's house, shoot them, and then not be arrested immediately, not be charged with murder. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to me. And then now I know the latest news I heard is that they weren't releasing the 911 call that I guess the police officer, Amber Geiger, who shot Botham John, I guess they're not releasing the 911 call, or they haven't yet, because they don't want to mess with the investigation, which leads you, I mean, there is a video, I think, of her kind of looking distressed after it all when she's on the phone, like, I guess with 911, but that's about it. They didn't want to release the 911 call, so there was some questions about that. Yeah, oh, and there was even one where his family was saying that he has a red doormat in front of his house. You know, you think, is it possible for someone to go to the wrong floor, to the wrong apartment? Personally, I lived in an apartment complex when I was younger, like middle school, high school. Um, high school. Yeah, not middle school, high school. Lived in an apartment complex, and I was going through a hard time, so that might have had an effect. I was very depressed. My mental health was not great, but there were many times where I went to the wrong house, the wrong apartment, the wrong floor, either the floor below, usually the floor below mine, I think, and would actually try to unlock the door, but because of the way the keys worked, it was very clear to me, well, it wouldn't unlock, and then I'd be embarrassed and I'd go to my right apartment. So can I see that happening? Yes, but for it to go as far as entering the house, entering the apartment for whatever reason, you know, that leads me to ask, was the door really ajar? Was there some kind of, you know, what happened? Was she like messing around the door and he opened it to see what was going on? You know, those are the kind of questions I have. I think it is possible that she could have gone to the wrong apartment, especially if these were floors that looked exactly the same layout, which a lot of buildings do, and even parking garages. You know, were there floor numbers anywhere nearby? And even so, she still could have missed it after a long, stressful day, yes. But then again, you're thinking, should this person then have a gun if they're going to be affected that way? Should an off-duty police officer be so quick to draw their gun in certain situations? You know, it draws into me a lot of questions. And then on top of everything, there's the media and the media bias on top of all this, when it comes to anything. So you never know what information you're getting. You know, you never know exactly how accurate it is or how it's been manipulated by certain sites. Just looking up this whole incident to do a little research before making this video, I saw websites that were completely conservative and websites that were completely liberal that both wanted to paint this picture that to me seemed super one-sided and you know, I'm more liberal, definitely, but I like to think I'm more in the middle. But I definitely lean towards liberal. But either way, there were some liberal sites that were just super over-exaggerated in those ways, and I hate that. I hate that the information we're getting is often messed with and chosen by others, what we get and how we get it. So I just always highly encourage everyone out there, especially when consuming news on the media and even on television, certain biased news media sources, just to check sources, double check, see if there's bias possibly coming from this article or this information. Get multiple views, get multiple websites, multiple sources, so you can get a whole round view of different incidents before really, you know, I think that's the best way to get a full picture of what's going on and not spread fake news and fake information to others, and not also like trying to change things is great and trying to make things better is great, but when you're exaggerating things to try to prove your point and why things need to be better, it just ends up making your whole cause look like not I don't know what the word is, like just not credible, or it makes your whole cause look like it undermines like your whole cause and how real it really is, because you you are pushing something, you know, like your intentions could be great, but if people can't trust your information or like what you're saying, or if you exaggerate something or use exaggerated information to push your point, it's just gonna look like you're not serious, or it's no one's gonna people aren't gonna take you seriously or your point seriously. So anyways, this was a long video, over 15 minutes, so you know I'm gonna get off here, but especially when it comes to the Botham John incident, this happened near me. I live in the Dallas area. I get news updates for the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so I heard this as soon as it first came out. The very first message I got was that a man was shot by a police officer in his own home. Black man was shot by a white police officer in his own home in Dallas, and from there, more news just kept coming in, and things just kept getting more strange, and more questions actually kept arising. So I encourage us to not forget about this story, not stop asking questions about what happened, and not stop trying to find answers. I really want to send my condolences to the John family and anyone else who has gone through anything like this. I really hope we can use his story to try to make things better in the future. I've heard that he was the kind of guy who would talk about police shootings, you know, try to keep that conversation going and stuff. And I think someone in his family actually said in an interview that if this had happened to someone else, he probably would have called her and they would have discussed it, because that's the kind of person he was. So I think it seems only fitting that we now take his story and hopefully use that to get justice for others and people in the future, and see really what we value in America, and guns and uniforms and race and ethnicity and all this stuff, like how at the end of the day, strip away all that, we're all just human, and we all have our own stories and our own struggles, and I hope that what I would hope for is a way we can all come together and just find the best possible life for everyone. That sounds stupid, like, I don't know. It's just I hate to hear things like this, and then it becomes all these things between black and white, and cops and citizens, and it's like at the end of the day, we're all humans, and I think that's the most important thing. So don't stop asking questions. Don't stop wanting justice, though, because that's the only way we're going to get to a more equal society, I believe. So anyways, that's my long video on the Botham Jean. Sorry, I always say Jean. His last name's spelled Jean, so it messes me up a little bit, but it's Botham John. I want to get that right, and it's a little bit longer video, but I think this story deserves that. So thank you all for watching. I will see you all next week. I love you all so much. Stay strong, stay safe, stay you, as always, and peace.